This video is to address a great question that Ryan came up with on this February 4 class exercise. And I think the problem was Perpetual Growth Challenge. The idea was, can we use an alternative approach to calculating this rate of return? What we need to do is set net present value equal to 0 by changing the discount rate to find the rate of return. Now, in the previous problem, we used 1,000 years of forecast to get our net present value and our rate of return, and then we calculated a terminal value for all the cash flows beyond year 5 and used a shorter approach to get the net present value. And then the question is, we get a rate of return using just those 6 cells? And we can't get the right one anyway, because this last cell is based on a terminal value, which is based on a 10% discount rate. So there's no way to change that using the IRR function on these cells. Now we could convince ourselves that if we set this to 0 by changing the discount rate, that we'd get the same 43%. So we know that method works, but when we do that, we mess up our net present value, at least, maybe not our rate of return. We mess up our net present value here because we changed the discount rate. So much like problem 7 in the test 1 study guide, we want to set up a chance to come down here and recalculate that NPV based on not the discount rate, but this cell here called rate of return. Now the problem that Ryan discovered was if we use the goal-seek approach to set the NPV to 0 by changing the rate of return, as I've said works in the past because Excel just starts with a guess of 0 in rate of return, then we get a very ugly answer. And the short answer for why we get that is because we didn't put a decent guess in. If I had backed up and put in a guess of, say, 10%, and then done the goal seek, we'd get the right answer. If you'd like to stop here and just remember it's probably always safer to put in a guess, then that's a good place to stop for studying for the test. If you'd like to see why, then continue on with this video for a couple of minutes. Here let's compare rate of return at different discount rates. Let's start with -4%, -2%. Let's carry that all the way up through +44%, which we know includes the right answer. Let's think about how Excel's goal seek works. Again, this is for your benefit. It will not be on the test. But if I do a data table on this, then what I see is that if Excel guesses as 0% for rate of return first, and then it's trying to change that rate of return to get NPV closer to 0, it says, well, if I move up with my rate of return, I get to 86,000. If I move down with my rate of return, I get to 31,000. So Excel probably decides to go in this direction with its Newton-Raphson method to try to get this closer to 0. Unfortunately, it doesn't get the right answer when we do that. So had we guessed 4% as our first guess, it would say, well, moving up gets me to 15, which is closer to 0 than 86. So chances are the Newton-Raphson method would have taken it in the right direction and continued to change rate of return until it got to something very close to 0, which was our 43%. So the short answer here was it's always better to put a guess in, and my apologies for any confusion that caused. But whether you're using the IRR method or the goal seek method, if you're not getting a reasonable answer, go back and try a guess, say around 10%, usually a good guess.